Hello, little wine introverts. Welcome back to Introvert Wine Podcast, and we are in episode 11, which is called Taste of Moldova. I wanted to continue exploring more maybe obscure or hidden wine regions throughout the world, and it was very natural to me to continue with my maybe historical or geographical background to explore Moldova. Growing up, I know a lot of us who come from the former Soviet Unions have seen a lot of Moldovan wines on the shelves, but after the breakup of Soviet Union, I think the scene of the wines in Moldova has changed drastically, and it was my interest to explore what is happening in the so-called Moldova wine renaissance more in depth and understand what are the current trends, situation, what are the styles of wines, the varieties, and so much more. So it was natural again for me to invite somebody from Moldova to speak about it because I do know some facts and some wines from Moldova through my work at ASI, but I wanted to have somebody who has more hands-on and in-depth experience with the wines of Moldova. So I have the original lonely subscriber, the OG wine introvert, Dumitru Coslet, who will join me on this beautiful talk about wines of Moldova, which is going to be scandalous, and maybe some of us will get cancelled, which I don't believe we will. But I really think that's going to be a very fun chat because I love people who are passionate and also very sincere and unapologetic and direct about their opinions. But I do believe that Dima cares deeply about wines of Moldova. And again, as I said, has a very extensive knowledge. So enjoy us for a very resourceful chat about wine of Moldova. Very warm welcome to Introvert Wine Podcast to Dima. Dima, can you please introduce yourself briefly?
Hello, my name is Dumitru Coslet. I'm a little introvert, hospitality professionist with 20 years of experience. I'm representing Moldova at the sommelier competition, but just to make others look better on.
We'll see about that. So my idea to record this podcast was, of course, naturally to speak to Dima about Moldova, but also as a very good friend of mine, Valeria, said that after recording episodes on Ukraine, Georgia, and Kazakhstan, it was only natural that I would go to explore Moldova as a continuation of this region. I wanted to talk to Dima because he's based in Moldova. He works with Moldova wines and he knows a lot. Naturally, I feel like maybe the generation of our parents who were born in Soviet Union maybe at some point knew more about Moldovan wines. But I want to educate those of us who are not born and raised there about wines of Moldova because I really enjoy the diversity of it. So let's maybe start with the, as you call it, a very boring but very interesting topic with me is some history details. Can you share with us some, I don't know, dates, facts, or anything that probably I do not know?
Okay, I will speak more about facts because I don't want to put everybody asleep with numbers, dates. One of the oldest traces of wines we have in Moldova, it's 7,000 years before Christ, grape wine. Just a regular wine called Vitis wine in our Dana Rivkova said already that it was the Greeks who promoted the winemaking in this region because we, Romania and Ukraine, we used to be part of something bigger quite few times, actually, to be honest. One of the first dates traces we have, it's the 7th century BC, when the Herodotus was mentioning that our ancestors used to drink more wine than water, which quite makes sense. At that time, they didn't have much of Avian to drink, so it wasn't safe to drink water. They had to drink wine. It's easy. After we get rid of the Ottomans in 1812, we became a part of Russian Empire. The winemaking in Moldova started to bloom because Ottomans, as you know, they prohibited the winemaking. And under Russian Empire, Moldova was the biggest provider of wine to Russian Empire. And in Poland, by coincidence, and also because the roots of wine was very logistically easy to make. By 1960, when we already been part of USSR, part of Soviet Union, every fourth bottle of wine was made in Moldova. So Moldova, Ukraine, and Georgia, as we know already, were the biggest suppliers of wines in USSR. Unfortunately, at that time, the bottles weren't labeled as made in Moldova because it was Soviet, and wine was made by all the population. By the way, the peak of winemaking in Moldova, it's 1982, when Moldovan Soviet Republic was the sixth largest wine producer in the world, and of course the biggest producer in the USSR. Every second bottle of sparkling wine was made in Moldova because every Soviet citizen had to have a bottle of sparkling wine at their table for the new year. Unfortunately, the bride in 1985, with the third anti-alcohol campaign and the prohibition, 30% of our vineyards were destroyed. That's the biggest damage than World War II inflicted. So we quite lost a lot of vineyards. We still have few because at that time somebody just removed the vineyards only on paper, and some of them we have some from 76. Okay, after the independence, started the Moldovan Renaissance, was established the National Bureau of Wine and Winemaking, and we started to embrace and discover the terroir of Moldova. Of course, by tradition, the biggest importer of Moldovan wine at that time was Russia, and we got ourselves two embargoes from Russia, in the latest in 2013, and a lot of employed people. But this is only my opinion. I still think that was a good thing, the embargo, because the Moldovan producers started to diversify the market and the wine, because the wine exported to Russia was just sweet, in best case scenario, medium quality. This helped us to start to develop the wine and diversify the style and started to make good wines.
Sorry to interrupt. When you say that the wine was sold in Soviet Union without the labels that it was made in Moldova, how it was labeled then? Just Soviet wine, or what did it say?
Yes, Soviet wine. Maybe on the label it was. I saw some old bottles somewhere, like at the bottom is writing that it's made in the underground cellars of Krikova or Mileshke, but it all was made in Soviet Union, so like it's a all big country. There were some mentions of RSSM, Moldovan Soviet Republic, but I think on the bottles of 85, 86 already, like latest bottles.
Okay.
And of course, we have the Purcari, one of the oldest wineries in Moldova. We have Negru de Purcari, which was one of the most famous reds in Soviet Union and even exported to UK.
Because I imagine maybe some of the practices still continue, that some of the producers, for example, in Kazakhstan, buy the grape must or finished wine from Moldova and then bottle it as wine in Kazakhstan, because our laws are not that advanced, so you don't have the appellation system or something like that. So it's technically allowed to do that, maybe with Uzbek grapes as well, with Moldovan wine, maybe some Georgian wine. So we never know. So it still can happen. So that's why I'm not surprised, even in Soviet Union under one country government, that it was even easier to do so, to bring the wine somewhere in, I don't know, Leningrad, and then bottle it under Jubilejne brands. But we know that there are no grape growing in around St. Petersburg. But it's just funny facts. When you mentioned that it was in the 1982 the sixth largest wine producer in the world, can you compare the hectares, the surface back then to maybe the current status? Like how much did it drop and then recover, or like do you have any comparison?
It's hard to say. Speaking about the bulk, I was hoping to not address the elephant in the room, but now we have a lot of wine from Moldova exported in bulk, to Belarus, Kazakhstan, and becoming a wine from Belarus to Kazakhstan. But we also have some wines from other countries, from Ukraine, coming to Moldova and becoming Moldovan wine. But we are proudly now the highest density of vineyards per capita, and still we import some bulk. I hate it, but still happening. In 82, like we had around 300,000 of hectares. Now we have only 1/3, because once again, after the prohibition, 30% of the vineyards were removed. Now we have 110 hectares, but for the winemaking, only 40,000. So 110 for table grapes and wine grapes together. EGP, PGO, Valutrean, Stefan, with not so many producers, because we weren't educated. But a wine can be from wherever, and nobody cares what it's saying, the EGP or PGO. Now things are changing. By the way, we have, I don't know if many countries have in the world, PGO for distillates. Brandy is called divine in Moldova because it's something divine or maybe made from wine. But the EGP divine, it's covering all the country. So you can make brandy and divine label all over the country. What's next and new? A lot of bulk wine exported, as you know. But luckily, we still have a good producer that make like 5 to 6 million of bottles per year. And the bottles already, they are carrying the proud name Made in Moldova. Had before the 2022, some producers exporting like 10 to 15 million bottles per month into Russia, and proudly becoming the Russian wine. But now it's not possible anymore. So I hope they will focus to other markets and they will achieve their numbers again. By the way, I have to say, in Soviet Union, we didn't have much of like wineries. We had like all over the country, we had primary harvesting, grape selection and pressoirs, and all the wines, all the must and the wine was traveling to the center of the city. We have the famous Krikova and Mileshchimichi underground cellars, because this was one of the biggest, these two the biggest underground cellars, where the wine can be aged at good temperature, and there is no need of regulation of humidity, temperature control. So this is why all the wine, they were traveling from around the country back to the center where the wine is made. So this is why when actually you'll arrive to Moldova, you'll see that Mileshchimichi and Krikova, they have the biggest collection of their wine. They have millions of bottles in their cellar, but the wine is coming from the different regions and all together mixed.
To compare maybe the structure of the wine industry, so were they more cooperative wineries and now more private wineries, or you always had the private wineries? So like in terms of landscape of production, did it change? Do you have now more smaller or kind of garage size wineries compared to past, or how did it change? How did it evolve over time?
Fortunately, the winemaking in Moldova was only divided but not conquered, because now I will take a few steps back. In Moldova, everybody makes wine at home. Just that's a law. We have to have 1, 2, 3 liters of bottle to meet and greet our guests. Now with the 16 and with the help of USAID, a lot of small producers like homeowners, they started to make like good wine, good quality wine, thanks to a bit of support from USAID, and not even garage like, but it's like you're a homeowner and you make wine at home, but at least you make a decent, good quality, and you bottle it, and they bottle it. Sorry, not you. They bottle it. The quality of bottled homemade wine sometimes is better than the garagist like style small wine producer. The quality is even more interesting, because in Moldova we try to copycat. The winemaker in Moldova, it's something like Sudukans, almost everything, different styles, different grape varieties. It's like you're going to duty free. What's bad is that they're trying to copy, but what's good We had nice investments. They are visiting all this Sassicaia and Antinori, and they see the tools and Amphora, and they are coming back to Moldova and they invest. And the equipment is like nowadays we have the cutting edge equipment, the pressoirs and everything, and fermentation vessels, the latest. We have a big winery, which is part of a group who has like a Moldovan winery owns in 2 different countries, and they have one of the best equipment in Moldova, and all the others they are trying to be at that level that this big winery make wines. Unfortunately, not many natural. I hate the word natural because that means the other wines are unnatural. Yes, bio, organic, not much. I have few producers. They are trying to start now, thanks to global change of climate change. They start to make more and more organic, natural-ish wine. We don't have much of old grapes, thanks to prohibition. I have only one producer, which I love it very much because he's an idiot and he has this crazy approach to winemaking, low intervention and everything. And hopefully we'll have more and more of old style of winemaking, Moldovan style of winemaking.
When you say about copying different styles, I wonder what is the trend now, because you have a lot of local grape varieties that are, I think, planted in big capacities, but I also see a lot of blends of them with international grapes. And it feels sometimes unnecessary and just for the sake of having, for example, Cabernet Sauvignon on the label to kind of sell that wine because maybe there is not a lot of hope that Fiteasca Neagră will sell itself on the bottle. So what is the trend now? More local grapes, blended, more international, or it depends by producer? Like what is your feeling about this?
Just yesterday, I had a visit to a winery and I knew that this question may come, and I asked him, what is the exports? What markets? Because I just came back from Norway, and over there, when you have Cabernet Sauvignon Merlot on the label, increases the chance to wine to be sold from the shelf. But he said there are some markets, they like to explore our local grape varieties. And what's tricky, we have local grapes, and in Moldova it's called new selection grapes. It's something like Piwi, the hybrids covered in 1969 with one hybrid parent. And in Moldova, by mistake, they are considered our local grape varieties.
Okay.
Of course, because the wines made from Viorica, Floricica, Wenitskansky, Bieli, or as Marina said, Sukholimansky, Odesky, Chorny. In Moldova, it's called Albernet. So we, Romania and Ukraine, we quite share the same grape varieties, but we have our indigenous grape varieties. And I guess it's a pain for me to see that our indigenous grape varieties, they don't get as much as attention because the wines from these grapes are very subtle. They are not so aromatic. And the new selection grapes are resistant to diseases. They can give a very good harvest. And as an example, Viorica during the Soviet Union used to give 20 tons per hectare, which is quite a lot, and it's a lot of pressure over the soil. Had even some irradiated soil. They're trying to give more and more harvest. I'm not sure that you are that old. During the Soviet Union, we had Pitiletka. Every 5 years, we had to increase to give more, spend less.
Like plan.
I'm saying we, like I was at that time working. So they had to discover these grape varieties that require less attention and giving higher yielding. But nowadays, we under a good management, they lower to 6 to 7 tons per hectare. These new generation grapes are very aromatic, very easygoing. This is why the public in Moldova likes a lot. And for me, as a wine lover, I'm getting tired of very aromatic grape varieties. Imagine that you go to a contest and you have Muscat, Gewürztraminer, and what else?
Yeah.
50 samples, 100. But if we go for local grape varieties, we have Fiteasca
Alba, and there's the other one, Fiteasca Regala, which I always confuse in my mind. So how are they are they alike, and how are they different in style? Because I remember one is, I think, less aromatic and the other is a little bit more.
Another elephant in the room. I will get canceled in my country after this podcast. But I'm surprised that I knew that you're a wine nerd, but knowing Fitas Calbert and Fitas Regala, know the difference. You got my heart, and the Moldovans will love you when you come to Moldova. Fitas Calbe is something like a bit floral, but very crisp and with fantastic good acidity under good management. And my favorite Fitas Calbe is not from Moldova. It's from Romania, from Carpathian Mountains, because it's quite higher, a higher diurnal range, and retains this amazing fresh crisp acidity. Fetească Regalo, I'll give you a tip. When you blindly have like Fetească Regalo something, think about a dry ferment, harvested dry ferment with no touch of mold. And Fetească Regalo is something like that. A lot of stone fruits, a lot of with a bit of clear maceration. It's amazing. We have few in Moldova, but speaking about the elephant, most of the white wines in Moldova, especially Fetească Albă, Fetească Regală, due to Soviet legacy, are blended with Muscat. So most of them, you have Fetească Albă, Fetească Regală, and you don't know the difference between them because we don't know the difference between them because usually they're blended with Muscat and they're very high aromatic, nice, everybody likes them. But when I'm trying to understand what's the profile of the grape and how the wine is made, we don't have much of information. Unfortunately, to make a good, Chardonnay, you can download standard operational procedures from internet, have the PDF and consulting from Italians, and they can make a good wine. But in terms of local varieties, that's quite very tough, and they have to do it their own. I have an idiot friend who's a sommelier and decided to be a winemaker, and he's making Fetească Regală with first Moldovan Fetească Regală multi-vintage. So the one Fetească Regală was aged in acacia, big barrels, and the other one, the young one, in mulberry tree, oak, small oak, 100 liters. That was one of the most interesting Fetească Regală made, but because this idiot has nothing to lose. Big winemakers, they would never play with a wine like that because they want to make a good wine. But
they want to have a safe wine, the wine that will be liked by a lot of people. That's a bit different. And that's why I also don't mind the aromatic grapes, because it's easier to explain, to sell to people because they feel the aromatic. So there is nothing wrong with that. But I was wondering, because when you spoke about Fetească Albă, because the profile you're describing makes me think that it would do great for sparkling wine. And I think I have tried the sparkling wines from Moldova. And I think they're both, that you do both the Charmat and the traditional method. I'm just not sure which is maybe prevailing. Maybe Charmat is easier to produce bigger volumes. But I feel like I really like the sparkling wines. I just don't remember. Maybe it was Cricova. I'm not sure anymore, but it was. I wonder if it was Fetească Albă or not because of the acidity and the aroma profile.
So thank you for question, my little introvert friend. We have few Fetească Albă in sparkling. We have Cricova. Cricova, by the way, is one of the oldest and biggest sparkling wine producer in Méthode Traditionnelle because they have underground cellar. And Purcari is the most modern. So if you are looking for a modern Fetească Albă made in Méthode Traditionnelle, it's Purcari 9 months on the lease because they want to keep the flavor profile of Fetească Albă and show it. But surprisingly, yesterday I've tried a Fetească Albă Metodo Asti. That winery is consulted, has a business in Italy. They make Prosecco and they have the consultants from Italy, and they say, okay, let's try and make a Fetească Albă Metodo Asti. 7% of alcohol, but its brew has around 10 or 11. So I usually expect higher sugar content in the wines in Metodo Asti, but these idiots somehow, of course, early harvest, and that Fetească Albă is quite with a flavor profile. It has the integrity of Fetească Albă, Low alcohol. I just love the low alcohol wines. Drunk people, more wine sold. I'm a bit a money maker myself. Fetesca Regalo, we have only few producers made in sparkling wine. Fetesca Regalo is quite aromatic, and the aromatic grapes don't go very well in sparkling winemaking. Speaking about sparkling winemaking, in Moldova we have Méthode Traditionnelle, we have Méthode Charmat, we have few pet nuts, and the pet nuts now are booming. And as I told you already, a bit of Méthode Asti. The most of the wine sold is made Méthode Traditionnelle. Thanks to Soviet legacy, we have only few producers making very good Feteasca Neagră, which we are jumping back to our local grape, right? Feteasca Neagră, it's a red grape, and he makes a very subtle Feteasca Neagră in rosé, but it's almost like bandol color rosé. It's very like amazing, and it's Charmat method. 3 months on the lease, and he said that maybe we'll make a Charmat Lungo with 6 months on the lease. So yes, sparkling winemaking in Moldova is quite different. It's has her own styles and fans. But I have to speak. If you are speaking about, we spoke already about all of Moldovan grapes, and we are missing one. The ugly duck. Called Rara Neagră. It's rare and black, and also it's called Băbească. It's like an old lady black grape variety, because you have to be old to make a good wine and to have the patience to make a wine from a Feteasca Neagră. It's almost like a Pinot Noir, but from Moldova, with less berries on the cluster. Very picky, very hard to make. Most of the winemakers, usually if the winemaker cares about Rara Neagră, makes a light-bodied red with red fruit flavors, just a touch of oak. In Moldova, we like a lot the oak. So this is why most of Rara Neagră, you may lose the Rara Neagră personality and have more oak aging. Of course, we used to have a cold winter, so this is why we like bold, heavy wines. But now we have more and more Rara Neagră treated with good care, and I think the future for Rara Neagră is bright, especially now we eat less fat food, less heavy food, and I think there is a chance for Rara Neagră to be the star. And I think in the international market, Rara Neagră could be the next Pinot Noir, the last Garnacha. Of course, we don't have the soil of Priorat. Our soil mostly loam and clay based, so this is why most of our wines are full-bodied. By the way, speaking about the altitude, the highest altitude in Moldova is 420. Most of the wines are coming for 200 meters above the sea, so not much of acidity, of diurnal range for acidity, but some producers can make a good wine.
Because in my mind, maybe we didn't explain it because we assume everybody knows where Moldova is situated. In my climate was more kind of maritime Mediterranean due to the proximity to the Black Sea. But what you mentioned now, I realize that there are also inland parts that may be at higher elevation, and then maybe diurnal range or even snow can occur. So the vineyards are not only in the south, which is closer to the sea, but also more inland towards Ukraine, Romania, that side.
We don't have much of, because our country is very small, and we don't have that much of inland. Yes, most of the vineyards are planted in proximity to Black Sea. One of the closest wineries, like to 40 kilometers to the Black Sea, which gives to Cetra, Purcari, Ștefan Vodă wine region mild, not so hot summers, but still a mild winter. During the summer, because there is a bit of hilly, it's 200 meters, there is a bit of diurnal range, which helps to chill the grapes and not lose the acidity, as usually on the opposite side, Valul lui Traian, which Ciumai and all these vineyards are situated. They don't have this proximity to Black Sea, and they don't have this high diurnal range. But those wines were famous in Soviet Union for the cohort fortified wines, because before we had our global climate change, only wines from these hot regions could ripen till 13.5. Surprisingly, and as we are both know how the photosynthesis works, surprisingly, 2022 was a cold year. 2023 was a very hot year. And surprisingly, in the north, we have 17 degrees, 17% of alcohol. In the south, 11. But because the leaves had to stop the photosynthesis because it was too much sun and they got sunburned and stopped. And the same winemaker, which is a joke because usually we would think that thanks to continentality in the north, we would have like lower alcohol, lower ripe grapes. But in 2023, it was the opposite. Of course, in the south, also not such a phenolic ripeness, but because in the south was too much sun, the sugar accumulation had stopped. But in the a bit in the north, the wines have higher alcohol. Now, historically, Moldova has most of the vineyards in the south, but now, thanks to global climate change, it's moving and moving. There is a problem with the continental region. I call it continental, of course, because we are not. Because of this autumn, in the autumn, rains had to harvest it a bit early. So still, surprisingly, we have a winery which uses Solaris, and Solaris, I know, is not suitable for a warm country or even hot region like us. But because he has plantation in the north and he makes brandy, and Solaris is good with mildew and gives a very good yielding. This is why in Moldova is planted a lot of Solaris. You'd be surprised. Another elephant in the room, the most planted grape variety, it's Aligote in Moldova. Like more than half
I'm
of
not
the grape.
surprised at all because there's a lot of aligote in Kazakhstan that was not also very, logical for me. But I guess also for it to have this acidity and also aromatics, and you can make maybe all the styles you want out of aligote. It is also very much loved in Kazakhstan, and I think that's also part of the Soviet history that they loved this variety, and you can find it everywhere. So I'm not surprised. Like aligote, I find in very strange places, so I'm not shocked anymore. I was like, okay, that happened.
But you have the wines labeled as Aligote.
Yes, yes.
We don't have in Moldova.
So it's like, you know, if you know.
I don't know. Yes, and still it's used a lot for distillates. We are famous in ex-Soviet and CSI countries for the brandy made in Moldova. We don't call it cognac anymore, unfortunately. And yes, Aligote is the most popular, but you'd be surprised. We have Tempranillo. One winemaker makes Tempranillo, which they planted recently. And I'm like, okay, Tempranillo is an early ripening grape. Now with global warming, why? We have Albarino made in Moldova. We have Chenin Blanc, only one producer. We have Viognier, one ex-biodynamic. He tried to be biodynamic. He used to be few years biodynamic, and he used to make Viognier. And Moldova had some interesting Viognier. But what's crazy, I think, you'll feel like near the shelf with sweet fortified wines in duty free, because in Moldova we have sherry like port like Marsala, Madeira, Tokaj, whatever we used to make for the whole Soviet Union. But okay, our sherry was mostly sherry like. Used to be made in sweet fortified. We had floor made. It was called the Romanit, but not so popular nowadays. The latest port in Moldova we had 2004 was the latest vintage. A Riesling made in Trockenbieren Auslese, latest vintage was 2003. We have quite ice wines because we are a sweet sweet lovers. We have few ice wines, not iced on the wine, but just iced wines. And late harvest. Now to late harvest wine, it's easy because it's hot.
I wonder, when you speak about you preferring the sweet wines, do you know if the majority of Moldova wines is consumed in Moldova, or do you export more than you consume locally? Or you don't know? Is it?
Yes, I know. I have the numbers.
Okay, good.
Another pain. after I may look like a person who doesn't love much of Moldovan wines because everything I'm trying to be an ambassador for Moldovan wines, but I'm ending up saying only bad things about wines of Moldova. So 85% of our wine made is exported,
Oh,
and 50% of that 85% is bottled. So unfortunately, some countries may thank us for the wine from Belarus, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan. It's us who made it. What's interesting nowadays with latest events after the embargo and the war in Ukraine, 50% of the exported wine of Moldova is consumed by Europeans because we are popular in CIS countries, SNG, but 50% is going to Europe. Romania, biggest supporter of wine of Moldova. If you go to Romania and say, I want some local wine, Romanian wine, they will give you purcari, a wine from Moldova, because they think we are still together and this is their wine.
I mean, it's the grapes they know as well. It's this.
Yes. We have Poland, biggest supporters of Moldovan wine.
I'm curious because I always see Wine of Moldova doing events in Poland, and I'm curious about the success. Is it because the Polish people have very similar taste, or like I don't know, do they feel the proximity, or is it also historical? Because I see that with them, Moldovan and maybe Georgian wines are really like booming. They really love to drink those wines.
Yes, I think that Polish people now are like Moldova we used to be before, because before global warming in Moldova was as cold as in Poland now. I have this theory that people from cold countries, they like sweet, a bit higher alcohol, but sweet. They like sweet wines. And unfortunately, in Poland, I think only 20% of the wine exported to Poland is dry. All the others are semi-sweet, semi-dry wines. Surprisingly, because Poland already makes very good wines. In 5 years, they will be able to take care about, I think, about their market. Okay, maybe not in five. I'm too optimistic. Yes.
No, but I mean, the market is also growing, and I don't think that they
Yes.
have a lot. Maybe at this moment they'll have around maybe 1,000 or a couple of thousand hectares. So it's maybe not covering the needs that they have. So they don't produce enough. That's why they need to ship as well. But I was just curious about this love to Moldova specifically, because some of the wines I also imagine that they produce local because it's a cooler climate, they have less alcohol. And the wines that they get from you can have 15 or 16.
Yes.
So
Happily, we don't export much of 14, 15, 16 degrees of alcohol wine. That's quite more an exception from the rule. The rule is like 14.5 still. We have this psychological barrier. We don't go that high. We have only one producer who made Fetească Neagră 17 degrees of alcohol. For me, it's quite high, but he said that he had to keep the grapes on the wine in order to achieve the phenolic ripeness. We are reaching now 68 countries exporting, yes, 68 countries with 126 producers flying and carrying the Moldovan flag around the world. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened with Asia. Our small producers, they had quite romantic experience, quite a love the Asia and Oceania had for Moldovan wine. Korea was one of the top markets for the small producer, and we used to export a lot. I don't know what is happening, and the market dripped a bit. US, thanks to Moldovan diaspora, they are changing not only the government and the parliament in Republica Moldova, but also the wine market, because they import. I know few importers, Moldovans, based in Chicago and in US, they import a lot of Moldovan wines to cover the needs of Moldovans. Imagine being in US or in Napa Valley, going for a dinner and having on the table a wine from Moldova, and they'll be like, when you have US next border. I have a friend who's exporting wine to Africa, Mali, and Burkina Faso, I guess. So yes, we are diversifying the market. I
Very
don't know who had.
rich mix of markets. I mean, I understand some of them because you said that yes, maybe there is a big diaspora of people who immigrated, but and also some of the markets might be curious, like Korea, Japan, they're usually very open to countries that maybe are not the most known. Like I know they love Georgian wines a lot as well, and also like the new wave Georgian. But also you mentioned Norway. So how is Scandinavia feeling towards Moldova? Do they like the style of wine, or is it not maybe so popular compared to others?
I was just saying that I'm quite humble and I don't know what to say about me, but I have to brag a bit. I just came back from Norway where I was representing the wines of Moldova at one festival. We had 300 people per
Mhm.
day at our stand. And I have to say that had almost had no wine that people didn't like. So I was having people with into aromatic whites, and they say, okay, I like this aromatic whites. Of course, I'm a cheater, and I had to give the local grape varieties blended with Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot just to have this crush and to open the doors. They were surprised the quality, of course, because they don't know about our legacy, because we used to be one of the biggest in this area few times. We like to think about ourselves like we are the best, but Norwegians like, who are you? And thanks to this, they say, oh, nice, that's interesting. Coming from Moldova, I didn't get offended because they were thinking that the wine from Moldova should be worse. But they liked the Cabernet Sauvignon Merlot blend. Fetească Neagră was one of the best top selling. What's interesting, they gave more a chance to small wine producers. I don't know, maybe because their wine has quite a personality, and Norwegians are maybe sick of polished wines and they want something with personality. Sparkling wines, at second day we had sold out. We weren't selling, just
Mhm.
giving to try, and so many people came to try the sparkling wines made in Moldova, and they said almost like champagne, which is bullshit, but maybe they didn't try a good champagne. Few years ago, last year, Effervescent du Monde, the best Cabernet Sauvignon was a sparkling wine from Moldova. Quite a joke that the best Cabernet Sauvignon, it's a sparkling wine, but this contest to get a medal for Moldova, to get a medal from Effervescent du Monde. Another sparkling wine, reserve, a single vintage one, got best wine in show, I guess, at Concours Mondial de Bruxelles in Mexico now. So I think I'm saying that I don't like the comparison of Moldovan wines to champagne. To Creman, okay, it's okay, I can accept it, but not with champagne. But the competitions, they're saying vice versa. So I think I have to revise my tastes in champagne. Not everybody drinks Salon and Comme du Champagne.
Is there any country, any market that you would like to have wine of Moldova that maybe it's not yet there and you would be, I don't know, curious for this country to discover the wines?
Yes, I want to be the wine ambassador of Wine of Moldova in Madagascar. I love that country, and I want to travel over there and make events.
Oh, you can multitask. You can be a brand ambassador in Seychelles, in Maldives, in Bali.
Yes, 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 yes.
I understand your logic now. Speaking about an ambassador of Moldova wines, I have the bonus question, which I usually ask in the end. What are your top three wines at the moment we're speaking about here and now, that a person should try to kind of discover or understand or fall in love with wines of Moldova? What are your three choices?
I will go with the icebreakers. Okay, this will be just the choice to give for a person. I hope these icebreakers will just make curious people about the wine of Moldova. I have to say, with one of the oldest blend and the first rewarded international wine, it's called the Negru de Purcar from Purcar Winery, which is one of the oldest winery in Moldova. Negru de Purcar used to be field blend long time. Now, thanks to discovering of that great varieties, this is one of the passports and the ambassador of Moldovan wines. 2022, 2020 vintage, I think, is one of the best. I think about Fetiasca Alba from Teva Winery, old wines, 1976 grape wines, beautiful winemaking. Purcari is perfect winemaking, but I don't think perfect is always beautiful. So be beautiful winemaking, careful winemaking. And let's finish it with a sparkling wine from Moldova. I would go to Krikova, Elogiu. Krikova is the must visit place in Moldova. Krikova Milești Mici, biggest underground cellar, biggest collection. And the Elogiu is 50 months on the lease, 100% Chardonnay. And this is one of the first sparkling wines from Moldova, which has this very intense fruit part along with secondary aroma in the wine. It's a very interesting bouquet with a huge potential for age.
Nice. I feel like I already have very proud of myself. I already have tasted, I think, 2 out of your 3. So I'm very advanced in my discovery.
You can apply to being a wine ambassador yourself of Moldovan wines.
Okay. I'll have to pass the DIMA exam then on the to get
We can do it in Belgrade.
Okay. Well, yeah, I have high expectations. So you can maybe bring some more wines for me to taste there. But yeah, I think I have asked most of the questions that I had on my mind. So from my side, a very, very big thank you for sharing your passion and your knowledge and some nerds details with myself and our introvert wine followers. Thank you so much, and see you maybe soon in Belgrade.
Thank you. It was a very big pleasure.
I really am thankful to Dima for a very deep and honest conversation, and I think we covered quite a few topics. We did speak a lot about historical backgrounds and varieties and regions, geography, the styles of wines, different producers. So I think that gives you a good maybe introduction to Moldova, to the wines of Moldova. And I do urge you to explore more because, as you have seen, there is amazing diversity and a lot of very new and fun trends coming on. I will probably not do any more regions on the Introvert Wine podcast this year, as I'd really love to focus more on some generic topics. But I do promise you there's going to be a lot more fun content coming up this autumn. So stay tuned for more. Share the love of wine, subscribe and like. I really appreciate it. And see you very soon. Bye.